Hello BabyQueers and welcome back to my channel. No opening meme because it's time for another story time on a subreddit we haven't actually been to before, at least on this channel. If you know this subreddit, you know what you're in for, because sometimes you just gotta follow the rules extra closely in a malicious sort of way. So that's what we're doing today. So grab yourself a drink, some water or some tea, whatever else you like to drink. And now we'll check out some rule-following people. Do you have your drink? Okay, let's go. Important calculation due? Sorry, no work from home allowed. I'm currently in my malicious compliance phase at work right now. I got ripped a new one last week because I needed to work from home in order to get some urgent stuff done for a conference I needed to attend the following week. I was explicitly told that I could not work from home without approval. And I was told that I signed a policy about it. I responded that my job requires me to work from home all the time, to which they replied, "You signed the policy." So now, after I leave the office, I turn off my work-issued cell phone and never look at it on the weekends. I'm a salaried employee, but I am not going to beg my employer to allow me to work from home. This weekend, I got a call on my personal cell from one of the other managers about approving some billing rates that were due. I told her that I wasn't allowed to work from home and I will get on it Monday whenever I have the opportunity. Everything will be late, but I did sign the policy. It literally would have cost them nothing to just let me do my damn job. I already get paid a fixed rate, but if they want to play stupid games, they can win stupid prizes. Edit. So, a number of comments asking about why I would even bother to work from home after hours. Here's my take. My employer is not paying me to sit in an office for 40 hours a week. They're paying me to do a relatively specialized job. Sometimes I do 30 hours a week, sometimes 40, sometimes more. Whatever it takes to do the job. It has been extremely flexible for me in the past and has allowed me to balance family, work, and a few volunteer activities. This isn't really an anti-work thing, more of an anti-this particular person on a power trip. Literally, why would you get so hung up? Like, as your employer, not this person posting the story, because they have always gotten the job done in the past, it seems. They've always managed to do everything on time, and apparently there haven't been any obvious issues, right? So why go on a power trip now of being like, well, no, but you can't work from home anymore? As if that fixes anything. I mean, not that there is something to be fixed, but why? Like, if your employees are getting their job done, what do you particularly care? It's not like they're writing up massive overtime for this, because they're like, oh, I'm gonna write down every single minute I spend at home, because they know it's flexible. They know that sometimes they maybe work less than they're being paid for, and then other times they just work more, and it kind of balances out. Why is this manager making an issue out of nothing? Really, seriously, like, you're trying to gain control of your employees, but really you're just pissing everyone off. Second-class consulting engineer. Years ago, I worked as a consulting engineer at this company with a very tightwad CEO with multiple sticks up his butt. Everyone else was super nice. I engineered a machine that shipped to the Far East and was asked to go on-site to start up the system. This was in the Northeast in February. I parked on an off-site parking lot to save my client the expensive parking at the airport and flew out on a cold, clear day, landed at my destination many hours later. I spent 2+ weeks working long hours to start up this machine. So many hours that I felt bad for my client and decided that I would not charge overtime. Fast forward to my departure, I asked for a limo service home because the car was frozen solid and I had just flown 20+ hours and was severely sleep deprived. Nope, only full-time employees get limo service. Consulting engineers have to drive themselves to greet the CEO. I decided to charge full overtime to the letter for every hour over 8, especially the all-nighter I pulled while there. It was the most expensive $80 limo ride he never paid for. Again, I know that you're... Well, this CEO probably wasn't thinking too much. It was just like, no, this is too expensive and I'm not gonna pay for it. Without thinking further that he might end up fucking himself over. Because I'm guessing the overtime you pulled as an engineer, if you were there for like over 2 weeks, a lot more than an $80 limo. So I kind of get it. You know? I think a lot of people would have done the same in this position of this engineer, to just be like, you know what? I was gonna be nice, but you obviously don't deserve it, so I'm gonna be petty about it. And I'm very here for it. Time clock compliance. I work at a manufacturing company. The closest time clock to the employee parking lot is the one down in the machine shop, and every day about 24 people can be seen standing around the clock waiting for it to click over to 3:30 so they can punch out. But about a year ago, we got a new general manager. After she had been there for a couple of months, she decided that this would not be allowed, and a notice was posted stating that people may not congregate around the time clock anymore. At about the same time, there was a corporate-wide exercise campaign around the Olympics, and many people downloaded an exercise app that tracked their daily steps, along with other things, for possible prizes and locational honors. Now, the downstairs machine shop is a large, open, roughly squared space, with a marked aisle running around the periphery on the floor. So when the time clock edit came around, people still headed to the clock, but instead spent their time getting their daily steps in. By the end of the week, we had about 30 people spending the last 5 to 10 minutes of the shift circumambulating clockwise around the entire machining department, checking the clock each time they passed. After the general manager saw this spectacle one day, I guess it reminded her too much of that scene in Midnight Express, and she reversed the clock edict. Funny thing though, people still kept coming down to get their steps in for a few weeks afterwards until the contest was over. Listen, I really get it. Like, sometimes you just don't want to start something new because you want to head home on time, right? Like, especially if you're not getting paid for overtime or if it's been a long day and you just don't want to start anything because it's not going to be worth it, because then you're going to go over the time. So yeah, you might just stand around chatting with your coworkers or being on your phone or stand in front of the clock or walking around the clock, which honestly, I can just imagine. Like, it's not really creepy in and of itself, but if you put like the right soundtrack under it and just film it, it would indeed be kind of creepy. I think she didn't think it was creepy. I think she was just annoyed and just decided to like overturn it because she realized it doesn't make a difference if they stand there or if they walk in circles. So that's one way to get a policy overturned, I guess. You want me to participate in the weekly all hands? No problem. I just saw an article about Mercedes-Benz allowing Teams calls with the camera to their vehicles, and it reminded me of this situation. Several years ago, I worked for a small solar company that was acquired by what is essentially the Walmart of solar. We went from weekly in-person meetings on a schedule that worked for both management and staff to daily check-ins, weekly department calls, and other unnecessary regional calls and meetings. What was initially 2 to 3 short meetings per week turned into around 10 45-minute to an hour meetings per week. My responsibilities were about 20% in the office and 80% fieldwork. Some of the locations I needed to get to were an hour plus away, and a lot of times I was crunched to get to 5 to 6 locations within the workday. For as long as I could, I would either skip a call if I was in the field, or I would listen and not participate so I was on the call but could still take care of whatever tasks I needed to. I ended up getting reprimanded and told to just park and take the calls, but I needed to participate in all of them or I would be written up. So that's what I did. If a call was happening, I would find the closest parking lot, take the call, and participate. This company also scrutinized overtime and hours, so we couldn't work overtime without approval. This meant if I didn't get something done, I would just head back to the office and reschedule it for the following day. My coworkers did the same, and our productivity dropped overall by about 60%. Within a month, our regional manager was in our office asking us what the hell was going on, and we told her directly that we have a large region to cover and most of these calls are nonsense corporate feel-good BS. If they wanted productivity where it was before, they needed to cut the meetings because meetings don't improve metrics. Actually, being able to work does. They did cut our meetings, but it turned into a shit show when the big company fully took over. That office is now officially closed because while we had the second best metrics in the entire company, we were tired of the BS and all quit, and they could not replicate our quality or quantity of installation in that office. I mean, sometimes you just gotta teach management, because sometimes I think we all know these managers that think they know everything better, and especially in like bigger corporations that just like make up bullshit rules like, oh no, but you need to be in every meeting and you need to participate and you need to have your camera on or whatever, without realizing they're screwing themselves over. So yeah, even if you know better, arguing isn't gonna help. So just maliciously complying and just be like, oh yeah, sure, I'm gonna take every meeting. Absolutely, if that's what you want. And letting them see what happens, which you knew was gonna happen, but letting them see what happens firsthand is a lot more productive. And I'm kind of hoping you found a job that doesn't pull weird things like this, after you quit. Okay, let's call the park officer. This happened July 4th weekend. I'm a member and have a place in a self-contained camp community. Nice quiet place with a lake and pools and a restaurant and things like that. I love it because my kid can be a kid like I was and go wander with friends and disappear until dinner time, and I don't have to worry. Our place is on a small cul-de-sac that is grassed in, and we use it for kids to play and set up a cornhole and all that. Because it's July the 4th, a bunch of people have guests, so the park is more full than normal. And a guest of someone on the circle parked at the edge of the grass. Well, my kid and another kid were playing catch, and one of the kids missed the ball and it hit the parked car. Owner of the car comes out hot, going at the kids. Me and the other kid's parents both come over to calm the situation. Obviously, if there's damage, we'll take care of it because it's from our kids. But this guy starts going off about all these dents and a big scratch and a crack in the windshield, and all of this is the kid's fault. I was willing to be reasonable, but when you start saying you want a ton of extra work done trying to blame my kid, I get a little bit less reasonable. So we're going back and forth, and then he says the magic word that if we aren't willing to pay for everything, he was going to call the park safety office to come deal with it. Knowing where this was going, I smiled and said, yes, okay, let's do that. So the officer comes out, and to no one's surprise but this guy, the area his car is parked in is a no parking area. So not only does the officer tell him to deal with it, because if he had followed the rules and parked in an actual parking zone, this wouldn't have happened. And because the guy told him he'd been parked there for 2 days with no issues before now, he got a nice fat ticket and ordered to move his car. He turned bright red but didn't say another word, moved his car, and we didn't see or hear from him for the rest of the weekend. I really don't understand people like this. Like, yeah, if there is actual damage to a car that happened because the kids missed the ball, even if you're parked somewhere you're not supposed to, okay, fine. Like, if you wanted like a little dent that's clearly from the ball taken care of by these people's parents, by these kids' parents, fine. But if you're gonna be that obvious and like point out every other damage you probably self-inflicted on your car by not being careful, or like a crack in the windshield probably just because, you know, a stone flew in it while driving, that's not really anyone's fault. But if you try to pull all these extra damage that is very clearly not from one ball being played around with by kids, then what did you expect to happen, really? Like, how did you see this ending well? You know, did you just think you could yell at these parents until they pay for it? Because you gotta know that other people aren't gonna go with that, because it's very obvious you're trying to scam them. He came in for a refund, so I gave him one. Years ago, when 2-year cell phone contracts were still a thing and you had to pay per text message, I worked at a Sprint store in a busy area in Michigan. We weren't a corporate store, which meant we didn't have access to billing or refunds. We were more there for repairs and sales. One day, this man comes in fuming about being charged 20 cents for a text that allegedly Sprint had sent, probably a bill reminder, but I don't believe you were charged for texts from the company. Anywho, I explained to the man that we aren't a corporate store, so I wouldn't even be able to access the bill to refund, and that was just unacceptable, and started screaming. Starts drilling into me how I'm just a dumb kid and people my age just love to text but he's never going to, and how it's unfair that he has to pay the charge. I had just went to the corner store for a snack and paid cash, so I threw my change in my pocket. I reached into my pocket, smiled at him, pulled out a quarter. I said, "Here you go, with interest." I felt like a goddess. It was so petty, and his face, priceless. "This isn't the point." He slammed the quarter down and left. I hope he's having the day he deserves. I mean, I get that it's frustrating being like charged for something that you don't understand why you're being charged for it if you feel like you are unrightfully being charged for something. But again, screaming at other people and expecting it to solve a problem is not really how it works. Like, you can try, you know, to be annoying enough so they'll help you. But if they explain to you that they literally cannot because this store doesn't access the billing system, and then continuing to scream at them about how they're just stupid is a really smart move. And yeah, I hope this person has the day he deserves. What's your best? You want me to follow the rules exactly? Okay, fine. Story. My dad kept telling me to just follow the speed limit exactly after I got a speeding ticket. So I did. I drove 25 miles per hour in the school zone, 35 miles per hour in the 35 miles per hour residential area, and 55 miles per hour on the highway. He was running late for his job interview when I was driving him there. We hit every single slow zone during rush hour. He missed the interview by 20 minutes. He never mentioned the speed limit thing again. I'm so sorry about this dude's job interview. You know, like, looking for jobs is annoying enough, but still. Like, yeah, you could try going close enough to the speed limit so you don't get a speeding ticket. But if you're, like, paying for it yourself, why does he care so much? Like, telling you to pay attention to how fast you're going, okay, I kinda get, but this is definitely also a thing. Like, this is how you get people to stop meddling, actually. Written account of everything. I worked for a large property management company many years ago. The property manager was a terrible person. He was cruel to residents, low-income housing, and ruled through fear and intimidation. He'd get in his employees' faces, swear at them, and generally try to get people to quit so he could fill positions with friends and minions. He was doing everything in his power to get me to quit. I hated going to work every day, but this was during the recession. I had a baby at home, so quitting was not an option. At one point, he told me that I had to keep a detailed log of everything I did all day long, broken down every 15 minutes. I knew he didn't think I would do this. I also knew he'd likely wait months before asking me for the documentation. I also know that he assumed that he could fire me for insubordination if it was not done to his specifications. I was correct. He waited about 3 months and randomly asked me for the documentation. I told him to give me a minute and I'd print it out. When I returned with a full log, he and the assistant manager, who he was in cahoots with, just stared at it with dumbfounded and defeated looks on their faces. A couple of weeks later, I left that property and moved to another job within the company. A few months after that, he and the assistant manager got caught for fraud and stealing money. Payback's a bitch, I guess. It really is. Like, I really don't understand these kinds of people. But I love that you knew him well enough, that you knew this was gonna happen, that you knew he was just gonna bring it up at some point, that he was just trying to get you to quit. And I'm really hoping that at the new position you had reasonable people around you and not people like this who just get fired for trying to embezzle money. You know, you make the freaking yogurt. This happened when I was 16, 29 years ago, but I thought I'd share. I spent a summer working at my family's deli in Midtown Manhattan, doing a bit of everything, mainly deliverers during breakfast and lunch, and working the registers in the afternoons. While on deliveries, I got to know our regulars, and some were generous tippers. When they came in for frozen yogurt while I was on register duty, I had hooked them up with a little extra. One day, a good customer asked for a yogurt without a lid, so I made it bigger than usual. Then he changed his mind and asked for a lid, causing some to spill on the sides, making a mess. My frugal uncle saw it, flipped out, and told me I was wasting money, insisting that from now on only he could make the yogurt. So, for the rest of the summer, I'd stop whatever I was doing and run to the kitchen to get him anytime someone ordered one. At first, he thought I'd get tired of it. By the second week, he was annoyed. By the third week, he finally exploded, looked at me with pure rage, and screamed, "Enough! You make the freaking yogurt!" I get being frugal, and I get not wanting to waste product or waste food. But if a spill like this happens, it happens. Like, it's not the end of the world. And to flip out over it and just demand that only you can make the yogurt because clearly this teenager isn't capable of it because they spilled something once is absolutely insane. And I don't know if I would have the patience for it, but I think the pettiness in me would probably also come out in the same, which is like, oh, you don't want me to do this? Okay, I will get you every single time because only you can do it right. I think the pettiness in me would definitely also pull through, even if I technically don't have the patience for this. Especially doing this for like 2.5 or 3 weeks. I'm impressed actually, but it's just so funny. Do you ever just remind your uncle of that though? She's like, oh, remember when only you could do the frozen yogurt just to make him mad again? I'm not sure I would. But I couldn't be mad at it if you did, because honestly it'd be pretty funny if you just keep reminding him of it. Anyways, that was all the stories. I love people who are this petty, because sometimes people have a petty response to something in an unreasonable way. But in these stories, it's entirely reasonable because these people that cause other people to be maliciously compliant usually are just kind of unhinged and not in a good way. You know, to just try to be abusive to their employees or just commit fraud while pretending your employees don't work, or just being unreasonable and yelling at people. So honestly, in those cases, I really get the pettiness. And I love the subreddit. Why is it the first time we were on here? We're definitely coming back at some point. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed these stories. If you want to read more, because there are so many stories on the subreddit, feel free to check it out. And I'll be back in a few days with my next video.